Thank you.
Thank you, disembodied lady.
All right, well then I'll start and give a verbal update on where we're at with the System Center integration. So event support is moved forward to the point where a fire off event is triggering a targeted EMS refresh, but it's not complete. There's still a couple of areas of development that will be done. So for example, we need to only collect events fired since the last fall. That's one area. A second area has actually turned out to be a pretty significant obstacle, and it's around how we connect to providers. Our product was designed to connect to a provider on a single IP address, and this places a requirement on our customers to have one server expose everything, inventory, events, KEPNU. Some customers would like to scale out their deployments of a provider to have separate servers manage events, KEPNU, and they've asked us to enhance our product so that we can connect with their provider on multiple IP addresses. So the need for this change has been stewing for some time, but the System Center integration has made this need immediate. And the reason why is because a product called System Center VMM manages inventory on a single server, and events and KEPNU are managed by a completely different product called System Center Operations Manager on a completely separate server. So focus has shifted to redesigning how we can connect to providers on multiple IP addresses. And so a conversation is ongoing on talk.manageiq.org if anyone would like to follow it or contribute to it. Any questions? Okay.
I guess we're going alphabetical, so am I next?
Sure.
All right. So in the UI group, we spent a lot of time working on bugs and BZ bugs and issues on upstream. There's beta going on and releases going out, so we've been trying to knock down everything that happens, as well as some customer issues. We're also, we haven't been able to get started on some of the internationalization work. So Joseph right there in the middle is actually starting to get some scripts going to convert our existing Flash messages that use the Rails i18n gem to use getText, which is used throughout Red Hat. So we're going to convert to that, and then once we get those Flash messages converted, we'll start looking at converting other text strings in the product, and probably be asking the community for some help on some of that work, because there's a lot of text strings in the product. And then we do have a small demo to show. We added a feature to automate. Let me see if I can get my screen to share. Start screen sharing, this one, and then flip it. Let me know if you can see my screen or not.
Beautiful.
Oh, great. Okay. All right. So what we did was we had added the copy features into Automate to support, copying classes and domains and things across, no, not domains, classes and instances and methods across domains earlier. But what we had noticed was that we were missing kind of one of the key pieces to allow the customers to, kind of work with the product. And what I'll do is I'll show you here. Basically, see, I've got the Manage IQ lock domain. I've got, say, a customer domain that's got some overrides, and then I've got my domain. Maybe I'm a guy who's writing methods for, that are eventually going to end up in the customer domain. So what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to take a method, for example, from either the customer or Manage IQ domain, and I'm going to want to, make an override to change it. In addition, I may want to, make a different method, or maybe I'm making some major changes, so I don't really want to change the main method. What I can then do is I can actually go to that method now and do a copy, and I can actually now stay in the same domain. All right, because I could copy it to another domain that's not read only, but I'm going to stay in the same domain, and I can actually copy to the same path. Now, if I try to just copy that now, of course, I'll get an error that, you can't copy over onto itself. But I could actually make a new method name, and copy it that way. So that's the new feature that was added. is you're now able to copy things within the same namespace, within the same domain. I could then go to that method, make my changes in here. Let's see. All right, and then save that. So if I'm and then doing actually trying to make changes to this method and just want to test it out, I could then go to the methods. I could actually take the old method and rename it. And then take the new method and do the same thing. So now I could test that method out and everything. And if it didn't work or I want to put it back, I'm not done yet, I could switch it back. It just makes it easier, a lot less clicks and a better path through to do things like this. So, all right, and that's it. That's the only really major feature that we've added into the user interface. So. Right.
So Dan, is the rename feature new, or has it always existed in the product?
I didn't use rename. I just did edit, but I changed the name. So you could always do that. Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. So whoever's next.
I think probably me. So I'll go. Two things to show here. Let me share my screen. Oh, there we go. All right, so in Automate, we've continued to refactor some stuff and refine how we have the model designed. What I want to show is we've increased the use of what is messaging within Automate, which is used in the product some today, but not very much, and we've expanded to use it here for really two areas. So this first one, right here I'm showing the VM state machine for provisioning, and we've always had this first state where we call customized request. What's new on here is the pound sign and after is a resolution that will resolve to the vendor of the source. If you kind of read that string. It's hard to see on the screen, I think, but so it ends up being the vendor of the source for the provision request. So from the infrastructure side, that would at this point be either Red Hat or VMware. If we were in the cloud side, it would be OpenStack or Amazon. And what this does is when it calls the instance, the instance itself will respond to only the attributes that share the same message coming across. Let me show you what that looks like. From the schema side, it's a little easier to see. We have groups of two here. So one's a relationship, one's a method call. The asterisk is special in the sense that it will respond regardless of the message that gets sent across. So this gives us a way to do common tasks. For provisioning, I see this as tagging or things within our system that are generic across all the providers. The creates we left here for possible future use, but the messaging that will really be coming across is the bottom ones, the VMware and the Red Hat. So before, when we had something like a customized request method, that method would run, and inside of the method would be all the logic to determine what provider it was running for and what I needed to do per provider. So now if we look at the instance itself, this is what gets called, it's now responding to that message, and for VMware, we'll run only the VMware method, and for Red Hat, only the Red Hat method. And if I needed to, this domain's locked, I don't want to copy it right now, but if I needed to, I could put in the common one, would show up top. It's not showing here because it's not populated with a value right now. So this allows us to start to to break down this functionality, and you can see the methods we have here are broken out by Red Hat and VMware since we're in the infrastructure namespace. It allows us to just better partition that work. So I think it'll make it a lot easier for people to implement logic within each provider instead of having to worry about within a single method growing that and doing the switching themselves there. So that's been applied. If we go back to the state machine, that's been applied to a number of the calls. I'll talk about placement in a second, but pre-provision, something like provision or check provision are common. So those don't require passing along the message, but you can see the other calls for post-provision and pre-provision do. And then, at least for infrastructure at this point, another change we've gotten into this build is for the placement. Placement used to run when you selected auto placement in the provision dialogues. It would make a call into resolution. Depending on the provider, it would call with a different message down to the profile and run some placement logic. So while that's still supported for backwards compatibility, what we were, the request we had gotten was to get that logic into the state machine so that users could do things before or after, to basically decide when the placement step runs and give them the ability to do logic afterwards if they needed to. So we've gotten this state in here, which you can see is calling placement, and it is again passing the same message down to the placement class. Let's take a look at that. This one up. While this one uses similar logic, introduces something new, which is the asterisk up top. Before, like I mentioned, when you selected auto placement in the dialog, we would make the call into automate. If you didn't check that, that call wouldn't run. For state machines, the states always run. So what we're using here in the first state is the asterisk, so we'll respond to any message coming through. And this is an assertion, assertion attribute, which is now resolving the value of auto placement. So if you haven't selected auto placement, it stops running this instance. So we don't go down and run our Red Hat or VMware placement logic. If it is in, then it will continue through. So this allows us to set up a single instance like default, which at the base schema will provide the auto placement check. And then we have, again, our Red Hat and VMware best fit methods defined, which will only get called for, based on the vendor resolution from the state machine. So this has been applied right now to the infrastructure side. We're working on the cloud side to apply the same logic for best fit. The methods have already been done. It looks exactly the same as the infrastructure. So I think it's worth going into. But this is, I think, be really useful. The only thing we'll need to do as we add new providers is to include a new message attribute for those providers to then break out their functionality for whatever method we're running at that point. That's largely we got a number of other things in the works for the automate modeling. We're adding finished states, the services, and we want to go through and make sure that we're consistent in the naming of instances throughout the product. So we're still working through some of those items, and hopefully they'll be in the next release. That's pretty much it for the modeling. What I want to do was Eric was going to show where we are with the import UI for the automate model. Eric, are you on?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. All right, share screen. And I think we're good.
Yep.
Okay. So I have this test domain, which has nothing in it right now. and I have a customer domain with a bunch of stuff. I just wanted to open these and show that this is what I'm going to import. So I have the EVM applications with the operations and the profile and all this stuff. So go over to import export and choose this excellent file, upload. So I want to import into my test domain and the customer, and check this box and it checks all these. Commit. And that was successful. I also have this sample from the Dan domain that I want, so commit that too. Go back to the Explorer, and we've got everything that should all be pretty much the same. We've got my sample and all that stuff. Currently, there's a bug that Dan found where you can't just select one of the lower ones, but that will be fixed. But that's pretty much it. Right now, you can select namespaces. I think eventually we want to make it so that you can select specific classes as well. But for now, it's just the namespaces. That's it.
Cool. Thank you.
Looks good.
Any questions?
Is this only import or there's functionality even for export?
Right now it's just import.
Okay.
Yeah, export from the UI will give you the full automate model that's there, including all the domains. So then you can turn around and import that and select from which domain you want to pull from. So. We have anybody else up next? Anybody else?
I think, LJ, you said you're passing? So on to me?
Cool.
Cool. Okay. So there you go. The good news, hopefully, is that click a screen to share. Hopefully, it's the last time you'll see me demoing CertMonger. Right now, we have finished with the command line interface version. I did run into a couple of SE Linux policy issues with putting it into the UI version. So I guess maybe that will be one in the future, but I'm definitely moving off of this stuff. In general, here you go. From the command line, oops, is Oleg's picture showing up for all of you guys on my share? No?
Nope.
No, we see your screen.
Good. Okay. So where we are right now is we do have an IPA server. It hasn't registered my host yet, and it doesn't have any services. So that you didn't wait. From the command line, you can do this in the appliance console. But I said, hello, would you please configure me to be part of an IPA server domain? And it goes through, it sets up whatever it needs to go. And so right now, the current state is that actually, okay, cool. So now you see I went over to this tab. The IPA server now knows about my computer, but the work that I was doing with CertMonger says when I connect to the database, I want to secure this down. I want to use SSL so that we can really lock down our communications. I did a directory listing of the certificates that exist, and it says, hey, you know, there aren't any certificates that start with P. P is for Postgres, good enough for me, and so our goal now is saying, let's ask, would you please create the certificates? Would you please configure Postgres for us? grep SSL. This might be good. If we go into Postgres, this would be root var lib pg SQL data Postgres conf dot there. So if we look and we ask Postgres configuration, are you configured to use SSL? It says, no, I'm not configured to use SSL. So I hope we know the current state of our system. If we, as I've shown before, we do have our appliance console command line, which is if somebody wants to either automate our product or somebody has a shell into our VM and they want to run some of the basic functionality that we have from the appliance console. In our case, we would like to configure to have our client connect to Postgres over SSL, and also we would like to configure Postgres itself if it would start responding and serving up data over SSL. Postgres. So we are requesting that we create our SSL certificate for both the client and the server, and then it will reconfigure our Postgres server to use SSL certificates. Now, there is the case that the IPA server would not be able to respond and answer right away. So sometimes this will come back as wait, or if we're using some other infrastructure where they have a lot of signatures. Luckily, in our case, it goes through, and out of the box, it will just go through. Now, over on IPA land, we did register that we registered an identity of the services that are running. Both Postgres, I don't know if this is too small, Postgres registered with IPA and has an identity on my server, and also our client processes that are going to be connecting to either over SSL via REST or over SSL via Postgres PSQL. We are going to use MangeIQ as the client identity. So that's how it will be connecting. If we do, I will clear the screen. If we ask, is SSL configured in the Postgres server? We had said, asked for that before. And yes, indeed, Postgres is running. If we do a PSQL, let's list, or host, localhost, VMDB production, just to get a Postgres prompt. And we go in, we're connecting, but if we do notice that now we're connecting over SSL, so the connections are secure and other machines won't be able to connect without having some SSL form in place as well. So that's the end anticlimactic demise of CertMonger. So hopefully we don't have to talk about them. We'll talk about provisioning for the next demo. And are there any questions, or are you guys all set with that? Silence is good. Does anybody else want a demo?
Any of the other tech leads have anything to kind of discuss with the group here?
Yeah, update. Nothing really to demonstrate this sprint. Jerry's still working on making progress on implementing XFS. Mo's doing ongoing research in ZFS and setting up his environment so he could work on bugs. I've been working on some OpenStack isolation issues so we can access and manage parts of OpenStack clouds, and lately I've been diverted to fixing some bugs as well. And hopefully next sprint we'll have something more demonstrable, and that's about it.
Okay. Any other of the leads? Greg Blomquist, do you have anything?
Yeah, I don't think he was able to make the call this morning, but he's been working mostly on bug fixes.
Okay. LJ, do you have anything for the team here?
The only thing kind of related was there was some work with some of the database retry logic and how we automatically connected a database. There were some bugs found there, so those were fixed. But other than that, you know, not much else. Right?
Okay, thanks. Is Brona on? Any updates on Microsoft SCVMM?
Yeah, I went first. I kicked things off.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
All right. Anybody else? All right. Well, I should be back in the MAWA office on Friday, and hopefully Monday we'll be setting up a next sprint here, so that we can start moving on the features that we want to get done on the various fronts. The ones that we're discussing are integration with Foreman. There's the heat and Cloudformation stuff that we're moving forward on. We also probably should discuss containers and what that means for ManageIQ, running on them as well as managing them potentially. So there's kind of a few things that are being discussed. And I'll set up a, I'll update the current sprint document in the repo to reflect the current state of reality. Other than that, thanks everyone. Are there any questions on the phone or any comments? Okay, signing out. Thank you very much.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Okay.